Backstage Fest, a virtual celebration of the year's best and buzziest TV.
All right, hello everyone. Benjamin Lindsay here, managing editor at Backstage, and I'm thrilled to be introducing you to our first ever Backstage Fest. Over the course of 14 virtual events with over 45 guest speakers, audiences are invited to take an inside look at what goes into making a small screen series a hit. So whether you're interested in acting on camera, writing, directing, or producing your own material, or working behind the scenes as on-set crew, Backstage Fest has something for everyone. So be sure to head on over to backstage.com/magazine for the full schedule. Today, we are very lucky to be joined by none other than Sara Bareilles. She's most recently seen starring on the Tina Fey produced, Meredith Scardino created Girls5Eva on Peacock. I'm such a personal fan of the show and of hers. She can literally do it all as an award-winning recording artist, actor, songwriter, and producer. So without further ado, Sara, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Hi.
Now, congratulations on this new series with Peacock. I imagine you had so much fun.
Somehow, the events of my life led me to playing one-on-one basketball with Tina Fey dressed as Dolly Parton in the middle of the night. And I was like, this is a cool job. It was so much fun.
You couldn't ask for a better ensemble cast either. Obviously, Tina is producer and Meredith is on as creator, but you got Paula Pell, Renee Elise Goldsberry, Busy Phillips. It's just such a great crew of ladies. Now, you were filming during the last year of the pandemic, is that right?
Yeah, we started filming in October of last year, and it was crazy. I mean, it was really interesting. I think it actually informed the process so much because we were making the show during COVID. So COVID protocols being all brand new, and the production having to like work really hard to even, it was always a question mark, are we even going to be able to complete production on this? Because there were so many unknowns, and God forbid you get a positive test at some point. What does that mean for the whole crew? And so when we got to the end of shooting, we were like, I cannot believe we made it through. But it actually also really informed, I think, how everybody came to set. We were all so grateful to be working, to take breaks from the people we lived with, and to like go, do something creative that was also about laughter and joy and music and so much silliness that was happening too. It was really good for the soul.
Absolutely. I mean, what a gift, especially during times that are particularly difficult, to at least have that outlet, to be able to share your time and your energy and your love with other people. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, tell us how this first came about for you, because I know that you and Tina kind of had a relationship from your work on Broadway, at least just passing ships while you were both in New York. So is it really just a matter of her giving you a ring and seeing if you're interested in playing this character on?
Giving me a rose and asking me to sing. Yeah, I mean, I realize how insane it sounds when I actually say it, where it's like I got a call from Tina Fey and Meredith Scardino, and they offered me this role, and I was like, that doesn't happen. This is insane. You guys have, I don't do, like, the whole thing was a one stutter step for me, and a complete thank God for them. It was the middle of the pandemic. I, like so many people, was having a really, really hard time emotionally dealing with, I mean, everything we were all dealing with, but also my relationship to work and not working, and what does that mean, and who am I if I'm not making something, and obviously all the larger conversations that were being had politically, socially, racially, about health, and it just so much intensity. I don't need to tell you guys where we've all been, but it was such a gift. It was such a gift, and to get to focus on something coming down the pike that was joyful. And I immediately fell in love with the script, like so immediate. It's so up my alley. I can't even begin to express, to be celebrating women of a certain age who are, had their moment and want to try again and rediscover their love of each other and of themselves through going through this big leap of faith, was just I'm like, sign me up. Where do I sign?
Yeah, absolutely. And you've described this character, Dawn, just in terms of her appeal. She's a woman who is at a certain point in her life and realizes that things might have not turned out the way that she once imagined them.
Mhm.
What about that arc was especially appealing for you?
I think my favorite thing about Dawn, well, it's a couple of things. I love that she has an earnestness about her, which I really relate to. Like Dawn is a little bit of a straight shooter because she just like doesn't have another gear. Like she just is who she is, and she like, kind of doesn't. She's not a strategist. She's not like angling for anything. She's just not doesn't operate. She's not an operator that way, and I love that about her. And I love that she goes through this arc of allowing herself to want something. And there's so many people in my life, so many women in particular, but I know that a lot of men can relate to this as well. But there are so many people who end up in a space of sort of duty bound, and they fill their roles, and it's not that they're unhappy in their lives, but they don't allow themselves the space to dream.
Mhm.
And I love that Dawn gets to a place where she allows herself to sort of dream. And she even says it, like, I have to delude myself and act like an idiot to even begin to imagine that this could be possible.
Mhm.
And I love the playfulness of that. That as an adult and as a woman with responsibilities and a child and a husband and a job responsibilities, that she lets herself play. And
Mhm.
I think that's a great lesson to take from her story.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that you cite that line that she had to delude herself a little bit. Do you feel like that's kind of inherent to life as an artist in general? I mean, kind of being a dream chaser and being able to put yourself on the line like that. Is that something that resonated with you?
I love that Lewis Carroll line about, I've imagined six impossible things before breakfast. It's like you have to allow yourself to let the impossible things be possible,
Mhm.
because what is this life?
Mhm.
What is this life? And when any little small blessing or miracle happens, I think if you're always kind of in resistance to the fact that it could be true, or it's sort of counterintuitive to how you view the universe, then I think less magic shows up. So I'm a firm believer in, like, yes, the universe is on your team and it wants to bring you bounty. And I think that's, and it can be small blessings. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to
Mhm.
be a phone call from Tina Fey, but I'm really lucky I got
Yeah,
one.
yeah, for sure, for sure. I feel like that's kind of part and parcel of your own experience as a recording artist, now as a small screen actor. Um, just looking over the years, I've been a fan of yours since the very beginning. So Careful Confessions, Little Voice, to see,
Careful Confessions.
yes,
That's a
yes.
deep cut.
Oh, deep
Hey.
cut, yes, yeah, you're in good company, don't worry. But just looking back to that singer-songwriter and the journey that you've had to now really doing it all, did you ever imagine back then that life could have that in store for you as a creative and as a career, or is it really just being kind of brick by brick and see what the universe has in store?
It's been pretty brick by brick. It's been one surprising left turn after another.
Hmm.
And the one thing that I'll say that I think has been a real North Star for me in my career is that, I mean, I called my first label record Little Voice for a reason. I felt like that sense of connection to intuition has always been really important for me to cultivate and to keep, sort of work that muscle.
Mhm.
And every good thing has come from that, of just sort of following that impulse to go where it's warm and go towards your joy. And like working on Waitress, for example,
Mhm.
Broadway show Waitress, I had moved to New York and I was just looking for something different. And I am such a huge theater lover, and I grew up doing musical theater. And it was like, just sort of take a peek to see if there are opportunities waiting for you there. And I said yes as an exploration, just because it made me happy.
Mm-hmm.
And then, that show has changed my life in every way, shape, and form. But this show is the same thing. It was just like, say yes to that part of you that feels like a little bit scared, but also excited at the same time. But no, I never in a million trillion years would have imagined my life taking the shape it has, which makes me excited about, we don't know what's in store.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. Well, to go back to Dawn and kind of finding your way into this performance, do you feel like you're pulling on similar muscles that you've been honing as a stage performer for years, or was this an all new experience for you to like hit your spot on the camera, find your lighting? Do you like the technicalities of screen acting?
Screen acting, yes, definitely. It's so much more technical than, I had nothing to compare it to, so I just was a little bit shell-shocked by it's extremely technical. And so I think finding the artful way of storytelling with that, it makes me have so much more appreciation for the actors that I love, who I see on screens all the time, just because it's such a different muscle. Mm-hmm. But I think what I tried to do was just show up honestly and then really trust the extraordinary crew that was taking care of us, not only our directors and our writers, but our camera persons and our lighting designer, like that. They were very helpful, I should say. They'd be like, move over, or like, don't look here, here's your eyeline. They were very, very helpful, held my hand the whole time. And I'm like a little bit of an A student that way, where I'm like, tell me how to do, like, help me help you, because we both want the same thing.
Fair enough. There's this awesome episode. Your character Dawn is going through a bout of writer's block, and she kind of hallucinates Dolly Parton, which of course is played by Tina Fey herself. Right. Is that something that you could relate to in terms of hitting a wall as a writer? And I'm curious if you have any tips for our audience today on how to push through those creative blocks.
Yes, I relate to that deeply. And I have hallucinated Dolly Parton for years and years. And years.
Haven't we all? Haven't we all?
Don't you just wish she would show up and eat your French fries? I think the best advice I've gotten about writer's block, well, there's two pieces of advice that come to mind. And the first one came from Eric Ross, who was the producer of my first record, Little Voice. Mm-hmm. And it was before I was going back into the studio to work on my second record, and I had tremendous writer's block. And no one, myself very much included in this, my record label, my manager, nobody expected that first record to go as well as it did. So I was reeling and I didn't even know what I had been through. That first year just took me all around the world, and this love song took off, and it was just like this crazy roller coaster. And then I came back and I was sort of faced with the challenge of what now, and like what else is there to say. And Eric was like, you have to just stay. You have to stay with the idea, with the piano. You have to sit there until you finish the idea. Because I was so used to writing from this other sort of mechanism. It was so free, and it was so unfettered, and it was so available. And now I felt all this pressure of observation. And so that was I think about that to this day, Eric, if you're watching, I think about that to this day. And the second piece of advice I got from Ben Folds much later in my life. And he's like, you have to kick the critic out of the room, because we all have this very loud, noisy antagonist inside of ourselves who's telling us that the ideas that we're pursuing are not valid, and our work is not good, and our lyrics are trite, and our melodies are redundant, and that voice is happening all the time. And his big advice was, you got to kick that guy out of the room. And
and to use your words, you have kind of this pressure of observation after something like Love Song. You have big shoes to fill, but it's your own shoes. After success.
Awful.
But I think both of those are great takeaways, that you need to sit in it, and B, need to just cut out all the noise. It always goes back to the basics, I guess.
Yeah, and that, I spoke to Alan Menken one time, and I was talking about writing a musical, but I think that this is actually really pertinent to every kind of creative pursuit, is that you have to trust that the good ideas will float to the top.
Mm-hmm.
That I have a tendency personally to work from this place of that can be a little bit precious. That like if everything isn't just so, or sometimes I treat my own ideas like they're babies or something,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
babies are actually very resilient. They're very strong. They're meant to be. They're flexible. They're malleable. They fit the environment that sprouts up around them. So I think that trusting that the ideas have fortitude if they need to, and not worrying too much about, is everything just so? Just follow the idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Could you give us a peek at what the right situation looks like for you to really hone the creative process? Do you have kind of a specific setting or music that you'll be putting on? Obviously, right behind you. Yeah, that's the obvious question.
I will say that a room with a door that closes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in a new apartment that my music setup used to be out in my living room, and then my boyfriend moved in, and I found that I stopped writing as much. And I think, I thought about it for a while, and everyone's like, oh, when you get happy, you stop writing. But I actually think it's just about that little cocoon of privacy or insulation somehow. So for me, having a room with a door that can close at least gives me the illusion of being alone.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow for me, that's just an easier way to access. But I love writing in the morning with a cup of coffee. I'm not as much I'm not a night owl that way. And my night times are for like getting cozy and getting in my PJs and connecting with my friends or family, or I can do that in clothes as well. I don't have to be in pajamas. But yeah, I'm a daytime writer.
Well, that's a much better directive than you only are creative when you're sad. You can't go out there and advise people, feel miserable, and then that's when it happens.
I think that I'm in denial of that being true because I just can't, I just won't accept it. No.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, I do want to rewind a bit. The Backstage audience with us today is very much those early career folks. I know that you went to UCLA for communications, but it wasn't until after the fact that you really started pursuing performance as a career, as a passion, or you were performing in school, but you know what I mean, performing in public. Yeah. But what role did the performing arts, did music, what role did that play in your life early on? And then at what point did the flip really switch to pursuing it professionally?
The performance aspect of my life was maybe the most vital kind of connective tissue to my whole relationship with art. There was some part of me that got activated as a performer, whether I was in my choir in elementary school and high school, or if I was in my a cappella group in college. I was writing songs from a young age, but I didn't have the confidence yet to share them. I had a terrible experience one time in high school where I played an original song and like the audience did not get it, and I was mortified. I was listening to a lot of Tori Amos at the time. I was like too young to even really know half of what she was saying, and so I think I was just writing songs I wrote a song about a drowning water dancer, and I to this day have no idea what I was trying to say. And I think the audience didn't either. So I was like a little turtle and went back in my shell for a lot of years. But every time I was on stage, whether it be in community theater or in my choirs or a cappella groups, something came out. Some little shiny part of myself stepped forward and felt confident and felt courageous and felt beautiful and felt strong. Like all of these great feelings kind of came to the surface. so then it became about kind of chasing that. And then as I started writing more and more, and I really my songwriting became so much more important to me, and very much braided together the with the performer in me as well. It was the writer performer were kind of inextricably linked.
Yeah,
So
fair enough.
I started to just see how connected it made me feel to the world. It was like when I so much more so than I was the awkward kid. I felt really just like I do not know where I belong. But when I was on stage and sharing my most vulnerable spaces, I felt closer to everybody than I ever did anywhere else. So that was just like the breadcrumbs. That's the part, so I would just follow that more and more, and that turned into lots of live shows at um, in and around college and then beyond, and then going on tour and realizing that, like, oh my God, to travel the world sharing music as like a communion with people, I can't think of anything more magical than that.
Yeah.
So it was just sort of following that trail.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you were able to kind of pay homage to that period in an artist's life with a project like Little Voice. You co-created, executive produced that. What's something that you learned in that process and getting behind the camera in that way that that you are still putting to use today? And do you hope to do it again?
Um, so what the main thing I learned, well, I learned so many things. A profound respect for how hard that job is
Hmm.
to be showrunner. And I mean, I was showrunner with Jesse Nelson. Thank God for Jesse Nelson. Thank
Yeah.
God for you, Jesse, if you're watching. Thank God for you. Um, it was so hard. There's just because TV is huge. It was, I thought working on a musical was big, and like my head was spinning from so many departments and so
Hmm.
much coordination. But um, TV felt extraordinarily just expansive and so technical. Still, there was so much technicality to take on. Um, but I loved our actors, and I really loved so many of our collaborators. I learned that it was like okay to take big swings and to have the faith of someone like J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot and Apple to believe in us to tell this story. And we pushed really hard, and they pushed really hard for us to cast in a way that was reflective of the world as it is. And
Hmm.
I felt really proud of our casting. We met some incredible young actors and storytellers and musicians, and I got to feature a lot of my dear friends as musicians. Like everybody who showed up in that club at St. C's is someone who is very near and dear to my heart. So
Hmm.
um, I felt really connected to the musical community through by way of that show, which was an unexpected joy.
Well, it's such a blending of your worlds, really. I mean, you say that you're pulling from kind of your music community, putting them on a streaming series, putting all your skills to use. It's really awesome just to see how you've been able to grow within different mediums and different fields over the years.
Yeah.
As a final question for you, kind of looking back to maybe your own Little Voice days, what is one piece of advice that you would give your younger artist self that you wish you knew back then, something that you've learned over the years?
Well, I'll say two things. For all those young artists who might be watching this, go get in front of people when it's safe to do so. I think we've moved so much of our livelihoods online, and there's a lot of pressure to sort of develop something online and have something go viral. But I really believe that the sweet spot is these small interpersonal moments that you just gather over time. I was a very grassroots artist. I started touring and I toured my ass off. And it was not glamorous. I mean, it was not, we were all sharing one hotel room, and we were definitely checking for dead bodies in the closets. It was like not that cute for a really, really long time. But I would not trade it for anything. Those were the sweetest days with incredibly close friends, and and learning so much about who I am. I think the reason I can go into these other places now, go into TV or musical theater or film or animation, I'm working on an animation project. Like the only reason I can do that is because I got to know who I am on those little tiny stages in front of strangers all those years. So that was something I would never trade. And the second piece of advice is just lighten up. Just lighten up, hold it lightly. It really, it means the world and it means nothing all at the same time. And so holding it lightly and letting it be the sort of ephemeral magic that it is, music, inspiration, creativity, it's like none of it belongs to any of us. So let it be fairy dust, because I think that's really what it is, and honor it as such by enjoying it. That's my other piece of advice.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you for holding space for this conversation with me, especially when we're diving into kind of the ephemeral nature of life as an artist. I feel like some people clam up. They don't want to reveal the secrets, but this was so great just to be able to pick your brain a little bit, and I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. Again, this is Sara Bareilles. Catch the rest of Backstage Fest over the next 3 days. Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much for watching. For more advice, tips, and career inspiration for actors and creators, subscribe to Backstage's YouTube channel.